been lied to about discipline. They made it sound like a morning routine, some neat little ritual of waking up early, checking boxes, feeling proud because your to-do list looks tidy. That's not discipline. That's domestication. That's what the system teaches you to confuse with mastery, because real discipline is terrifying. It's not designed to make you feel good. It's designed to make you unrecognizable to yourself, to your comfort, and to the world that benefits from your softness. True discipline isn't a virtue. It's a form of violence, not against others, but against your own weakness. The ancient kings, the philosophers of control, the soldiers of the mind, they understood this. Discipline is the silent weapon of those who refuse to be ruled. It's the capacity to act without applause, to execute without feeling, to destroy parts of yourself that sabotage your ascent. That's not pretty. That's not motivational. It's psychological warfare against the enemy inside your own head. The weak crave motivation because they still believe they need to feel inspired to move. The powerful operate in emotional silence. They don't wait for energy or approval because they understand a basic law of neuropsychology. The brain's reward system, the dopamine circuit, is a liar. It tricks you into chasing novelty instead of mastery. Every scroll, every small win, every micro hit of validation keeps you addicted to the feeling of progress while ensuring you never actually make any. But the disciplined man starves that circuit. He builds his identity not on the feeling of doing, but on the fact of doing. His nervous system learns that discomfort is the new signal of progress. And that rewiring, that reprogramming, is what separates the common mind from the sovereign one. So, let's start with the first execution, the funeral of your weaker self. You don't need more inspiration. You need a mental death sentence. The part of you that hesitates, procrastinates, and worships comfort like a false god, that part must be eliminated. You drag him into the courtyard of your mind, strip him of every excuse, and end him silently. No mercy, no mourning, because the version of you that survives on impulse cannot coexist with the one destined for dominance. And understand, this isn't metaphorical. Neuroscience shows that when you stop feeding a habit, those neural pathways literally weaken. Every time you deny the impulse to delay, to distract, to comfort yourself, you're killing off the old wiring. This is what neuroplasticity really means in practice. Not learning something new, but unlearning the reflexes of the weak. Discipline begins in blood, the blood of your former self, not literal, but symbolic of the energy that used to leak through indulgence. Every moment you resist what's easy, you reclaim that energy. You cut away the dead weight. The weaker you is not just lazy, he's hostile. Every time you betray your word, every skipped workout, every broken promise, it's his whisper in your head. That whisper is the voice of your lower brain, your limbic system, begging for comfort, and it must be silenced. This isn't self-improvement. Improvement assumes you're adding something new. What you're about to do is subtraction. You're removing illusions like peeling off layers of softness until what's left is something raw, sharp, indestructible. The process hurts because it has to. The ego clings to the old identity, terrified of becoming obsolete. But if you endure that inner civil war long enough, something miraculous happens. Stillness. That's when the noise stops. That's when action becomes mechanical, almost sacred. You stop negotiating with yourself because there's no one left to negotiate with. You've executed the parliament of excuses. Now there is only law, your law. You want to know why so many fail? Because they keep trying to drag their weaker selves along for the ride. They build routines, goals, habits, but they never commit the execution. They think they can evolve without blood. Impossible. You cannot carry both versions of yourself through transformation. One must die so the other can rule. If you've been waiting for the right time, understand this. Time doesn't care. There is no ready. There is only now. And now demands sacrifice. The weaker you has been feasting on your potential for years. Today, you end the feast. You don't post about it. You don't announce it. You execute it in silence. From this moment forward, every comfort you remove is a cut. Every excuse you silence is a strike. Every discipline you keep is a scar that proves sovereignty. Write this, and mean it like an oath carved in steel. The execution has begun. Because discipline doesn't begin with feeling good, it begins with killing who you were told to be. You are not here to be comfortable. You are here to conquer yourself. And that first conquest happens quietly, internally, ruthlessly. So, when you feel the urge to delay, to justify, to indulge, don't resist it. Recognize it. Name it as the old self gasping for air, then bury it deeper. You're not just changing habits, you're changing identity. This is your first act of rule, not over the world, over the mind. Discipline doesn't live in emotion, it lives in order. And order, by its nature, is merciless. When you start governing yourself like a ruler governs a kingdom on the brink of collapse, you begin to understand what true power feels like. Not joy, not satisfaction, but command. You see, most people live under a democracy of feelings. Every emotion gets a vote. Tiredness votes rest. Fear votes wait. Doubt votes quit. And then they wonder why their lives feel chaotic. Their mental parliament is filled with liars, and the loudest voice wins. Discipline is the coup that overthrows that parliament. It's the moment you seize control of your own inner state and establish a new regime, your regime. Cognitive psychology calls this executive control, the prefrontal cortex's ability to override impulses coming from the emotional brain. But let's speak plainly. It's the difference between being ruled and ruling. Your feelings are data, not directives. The disciplined man doesn't ignore them. He observes them, translates them, and then makes a decision that serves the mission, not the mood. You wake up, you act, you fail, you act again. That's law. No debates, no public votes, just decrees executed with precision. This is what philosophers like Marcus Aurelius meant when they spoke of self-command. The Stoics weren't emotionless. They were in command of emotion. They ruled themselves like tyrants of the soul. When your body says, rest, your mind says, we're not done. When your mind says, quit, your discipline says, shut up. That's not suppression, it's leadership. The sovereign mind directs. The reactive mind obeys. And make no mistake, this is leadership at its purest form. Because before you can lead others, before you can lead movements, companies, or nations, you must lead yourself. And leading yourself means confronting rebellion in your own head every single day. Every moment of hesitation is an uprising. Every distraction is a coup attempt. You must crush them immediately, not with panic or guilt, but with calm execution. That's how empires are maintained, through relentless enforcement of law. When you say you'll do something, it happens. That's it. No emotion attached. If it's on your schedule, it's as good as done. That's how you transform discipline from motivation into identity. The brain learns patterns through repetition. When it sees that every decision you declare becomes reality, it rewires your belief system around certainty. You start trusting yourself. And that trust is the birth of real confidence, the kind that doesn't need noise, praise, or applause. Look closely at the men you respect. They're not necessarily smarter, they're stricter. They've trained themselves to be both the commander and the soldier, the judge and the executioner. They don't beg their willpower to show up. They've conditioned obedience into their psychology. That's what true self-respect feels like. And here's the truth no one wants to admit. The world doesn't reward effort. It rewards structure. You can have the most noble intentions, but if your actions aren't governed by order, they dissolve into chaos. The disciplined mind becomes a fortress. The undisciplined one, a marketplace open to every distraction, every emotional intruder, every seductive impulse, pretending to be self-care. Ruthless self-government means no more negotiations with your emotions, no more bargaining with your limits. You are not a democracy. You are an empire under control. The problem is, modern culture worships comfort. It teaches you to treat every hardship as trauma, every discipline as oppression. But discomfort isn't your enemy, it's your liberation. Neuroscience has proven that stress, in controlled doses, increases cognitive performance and mental resilience. The disciplined man weaponizes stress. The weak man runs from it. You're not trying to destroy emotion. You're trying to master the hierarchy. Feelings are the servants, not the king. If they rebel, you remind them who rules the kingdom. That's why the strongest men are calm under fire. They've built internal law so strong that chaos outside barely registers. You must become your own warden, not a cruel one, but a just one. When you fail, you don't spiral, you investigate. You treat failure as treason, but not as identity. You punish inconsistency, not with shame, but with correction. Every lapse becomes an opportunity to reassert command. This is not about becoming robotic, it's about becoming reliable, because reliability is the highest form of self-respect. Imagine a version of yourself that does what he says every single time. The world would bend around that kind of man. So how do you build this inner government? Start with decrees, not goals. Goals are desires, decrees are laws. A goal says, I hope to. A decree says, it will be done. You speak it once, you obey it always. Then you militarize your time. Not managed, militarized. Time isn't a river you float on. It's territory you must conquer. Every hour is land. Every distraction is an invader. You either defend your borders or lose them. Most people treat time like currency. They spend it. You, however, must treat it like land, finite, sacred, worth defending. Because when you lose an hour, it's not gone. It's been conquered by someone else's agenda. So you schedule like a warlord. You build systems with no emotional loopholes, no idle scrolling, no casual availability, no reactionary living. Your schedule is your sovereignty in visible form. And if someone demands your time without purpose, that's an act of invasion. Protect it, defend it, because once people learn that your time can be taken, your power begins to evaporate. Structure is not limitation, it's leverage. Chaos consumes energy. Structure stores it. The disciplined man is not busy. He's precise. Even his rest is planned. Even his leisure is strategic. That's how you create a life that runs like a machine. Cold, efficient, unstoppable. This is what it means to govern yourself. To make law within your own psyche. So absolute that hesitation becomes heresy. If you're ready to cross that threshold, speak it into your code. I am now ruled by no one, not even myself. Because that's the paradox of self-discipline. You must become both the tyrant and the servant, both the ruler and the ruled. Only then do you stop asking for power and start embodying it. Let's talk about boredom, the silent killer of potential and the birthplace of power. You've been taught to fear it, to run from it, to fill every quiet moment with stimulation. But boredom is not weakness. It's the proving ground of kings. It's the forge where the mind learns obedience. Your brain is a machine wired for novelty. It thrives on dopamine, the neurotransmitter of anticipation, not satisfaction. That's why you scroll endlessly, chase new goals before finishing old ones, jump from idea to idea. Your biology is ancient. It's designed to seek survival, not mastery. In the wild, boredom meant death. But now, it's the modern battlefield where few survive. Because in a world addicted to stimulation, the ability to sit in silence has become a superpower. When you train through boredom, when you keep showing up to the dull, repetitive grind, your brain begins to rewire itself. The dopamine baseline lowers. You start craving less and focusing more. Your nervous system stops screaming for pleasure. That's when your real transformation begins, not when you feel motivated, but when you act without the chemical reward. That's what separates the amateur from the sovereign. The amateur chases stimulation. The disciplined mind manufactures peace inside monotony. He sits in the silence until it stops feeling like punishment and starts feeling like control. Most men crumble here when there's no applause, no progress that anyone can see, no visible reward. They break. That's because their identity was built on external validation, not internal law. Their psyche is codependent on feedback. But the one who can persist through boredom has severed that dependency. You think you're fighting laziness, but you're actually fighting addiction, the addiction to emotional intensity. The modern man's greatest weakness isn't fear or failure, it's his inability to be still. He mistakes silence for emptiness, when in truth, silence is the sound of his own mind becoming sharper. When you learn to weaponize boredom, you learn to dominate time. You turn every hour of silence into a ritual of transformation. While others chase dopamine, you create discipline loops, repetition that builds neural resilience. Every rep becomes a vote for your future self. Every quiet hour compounds like hidden interest. The truth is, boredom is the camouflage of greatness. It hides your evolution from the world. While they're chasing spectacle, you're building a system so steady, so stable, that when you finally reveal it, it's already unstoppable. You won't get applause for this. There are no trophies for showing up when it's dull, no followers for consistency in the dark. But this is where legends are formed. The gym at midnight, the notes no one reads, the quiet mornings when the world is asleep, these are your battlefields. These are the crucibles where mediocrity dies. So when the work feels lifeless, remember this. That's not a signal to stop, it's proof you're evolving. Comfort produces softness, repetition produces precision. Boredom is not the enemy, it's the anvil where mastery is hammered into being. Say it and mean it. Boredom obeys me. Now, let's move from silence of action to silence of emotion, the discipline of emotional isolation. This is where most men collapse. They can endure physical pain, but not emotional withdrawal. They crave connection, validation, empathy. And while there's nothing inherently wrong with those, dependence on them is fatal to sovereignty. Emotional isolation isn't loneliness, it's self-containment, it's psychological autonomy. It means your internal state is sealed from external manipulation. People can provoke you, insult you, tempt you, and you remain unmoved. Not because you're cold, but because you're governed. You stop bleeding emotions into the world. You stop performing for understanding. You stop explaining your motives. This is emotional minimalism, using silence as armor. The weak mind is transparent. You can read it through tone, expression, reaction. It's an open book, waiting to be edited by others. The strong mind is encrypted. It reveals nothing that can be used against it. It doesn't react to every emotional trigger because it understands that most social interactions are power plays in disguise. In psychology, this is emotional regulation, but in philosophy, it's closer to stoic sovereignty. Marcus Aurelius wrote that a man's tranquility lies in separating what's within his control from what's not. Emotional isolation is the living embodiment of that principle. It's the refusal to let others draft your internal weather. Because here's the brutal truth. People will test your edges. They'll provoke you to see if they can control you, praise you to see if you'll bend, offend you to see if you'll break. And if you react, you've surrendered your power. So you train yourself to feel without obeying, to observe emotions as signals, not orders. Anger doesn't command you, it informs you. Fear doesn't restrict you, it reveals what must be mastered. When you stop being emotionally readable, something fascinating happens. Others start projecting themselves onto you. They fill your silence with their own insecurities, their fears, their envy. Your calm becomes a mirror that exposes them. You learn more from what people reveal in their reactions than they could ever tell you with words. Your silence becomes strategy. Every word you don't say becomes a move in a psychological chess game, because what they can't read, they can't predict, and what they can't predict, they can't control. This is not withdrawal, it's evolution. You're building a fortress around your mind. You're no longer bleeding energy through emotional leakage. You're conserving it for action. And yes, they'll call you distant, detached, even cold. Let them. That's the language of those still enslaved to emotional chaos. You, however, have graduated from needing to be understood. You no longer seek empathy, you embody equilibrium. This is the next evolution of discipline, emotional sovereignty. When you can sit in solitude without anxiety, when you can face betrayal without breakdown, when you can walk through rejection without collapse, that's when you know the weaker self is truly dead. So, from this point forward, Understand. Mystery is protection. Stillness is strength. And silence is command. Say it. My silence is sovereign. You've burned the illusions, faced the noise, and learned to stand still in boredom and silence. Now the question becomes, what remains? Once the chaos is stripped away, discipline stops being punishment. It becomes alignment, the act of bringing your choices, values, and goals into a single, steady current. The world calls that focus, but it's deeper than that. It's integrity in motion. True discipline isn't about crushing yourself. It's about trusting yourself. The battle was never you versus you. It was confusion versus clarity. When clarity wins, discipline stops feeling like force and starts feeling like rhythm. The rhythm sounds like this. You decide, you act, you adjust, you move on. No guilt, no drama, just calibration. Every small act of consistency adds another piece to the internal structure you've been building. Eventually, that structure holds you up even on the days you feel weak. The disciplined mind becomes light. It moves through decisions cleanly because it has already done the heavy lifting of defining why. You no longer need rage to get things done. You rely on design. You replace aggression with direction. Alignment doesn't mean comfort. It means purpose so sharp that comfort no longer distracts you. When you're aligned, work becomes meditation. Rest becomes strategy. The line between effort and ease starts to blur. And here's the quiet truth most never reach. Discipline, at its highest form, is love. Not softness, love as stewardship. You care enough about your potential to guide it. You care enough about your mind to give it order. You care enough about your future to build conditions for it to thrive. That's where peace hides, not in surrender, but in mastery used gently. So, the next stage isn't about killing anything inside you. It's about integration. The parts of you that once pulled in opposite directions learn to move together. Your focus and your emotion, your logic and your instinct, your ambition and your patience, they stop fighting and start cooperating. When that happens, you stop chasing power. You embody it, not as dominance, but as steadiness. The kind of steadiness that makes people trust your presence without you saying a word. That's the quiet reward of real discipline. Not fear, not worship, not applause. Trust. Trust in yourself. Trust in your process. Trust that what you're building will hold. Write this as your new creed. I move with purpose. I act with peace. I command through clarity.